Okay, there we go. And thanks, person. You want to go, David?
I, I saw that Bob didn't have his microphone on. I don't know. I'll go next, yeah. I'm Dave Gottfried. I'm an artist and I trade financial products for myself. That's what I've done for a long time to make a living. I got involved with Edwin about 6 months ago. Really the first time we spent any time together was at what they ended up calling the Battle of Berkeley on April 15th. I went with Edwin with the tent to this left-right rally that turned into a fight, basically, between Antifa on the right. And I've been heavily involved with bringing the tent with Edwin to these left-right altercations and Trump rallies around California since then. And I'm really, really interested in this political environment and de-escalation of the political environment and figuring out some way to bring people together. So, and I think that the empathy circle and the structured dialogue that Edwin uses is super useful, and that's why I'm here.
Okay, thanks. And Bill, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm a recently retired special education teacher. I dealt with severely emotionally disturbed kids, extreme from the autistic spectrum to violent kids and everything in between for 37 years. And we basically used a lot of Michelle Garcia Winner's social thinking as a way to structure and make social cues and stuff more accessible to kids. I also was since 1994, the Crisis Prevention Institute trainer for nonviolent crisis de-escalation in the county of Contra Costa. And I was sort of the crisis person at my school. And I know how powerful these things can be, especially what you're doing there, which in our jargon was known as reflective listening. Many times we had, I could just watch a child who was actively violent, and when I tried to just ask him, well, what do you mean? And I, tried to feel that I was trying to listen to him, a lot of that violent energy would just kind of drain out, and then we could work together. So I was going to go to and I was very concerned that the basically sound psychological and social things that I was learning and demonstrating and seeing, wow, this works, was really not part of the social discourse at large. People just weren't talking about it, how effective it is. And I felt that that was a disservice to the American people. And when I retired last summer, I just recently retired, I came up with an idea, I called Occupy Compassion and Competence. And it seemed to be, to talk about compassion, but in a structured way, and creating an honest way of looking and seeing, well, are what we doing, is it effective, and what do we need to do? Because that's what I would basically found effective with my students. I offered 2 minutes of listening to be continued by mutual consent. I also offered, I just buy 20 stress balls and would say, if somebody can provide a semi-plausible reason as to why you need one, you can win a stress ball, just as a way of kind of breaking the ice. I did this at the El Sobrantes stroll about a year ago, and I was encouraged by the reaction. There was a young man in a Satan hat, and was all looked tough. And then, when I just told him, and he really couldn't access the expertise that I was giving, But the act of just being kind and giving him something really calmed him down. The other issue is incompetence, is that as many of you are experts in your fields, I'm pretty good in my field. And so many times I would see parents who would say, oh, I'm just so glad I found this classroom, I found this program. And so I wanted to start something I call protest as service, which meant that I'm not just, if you don't want to engage me politically, maybe you have a friend whose child needs some behavioral advice or something like that. So I also offer links to Parents Press, some other resources, and also my own classroom, positive reinforcement system. And when I saw empathy, I talked to somebody. I was very impressed by him. And, I feel that the reason I just I'm just seeing what I'm going to do, is that I feel that I have a little bit more politically focused. In other words, I'm talking about progressive values. And when I saw it, the empathy tent, it was just pure acceptance. And I certainly don't want to bring that into that environment if that's what you're trying to create. In other words, I am projecting a little bit more structure out there. And I also want to create a decentralized, where you would have sort of, these basic principles, which I can outline, but, basically being fair and, respectful, etc. And then having people take that and make that their own, so that they are the experiences, the message. And I'm just not quite sure. I'm not against, possibly folding that in to the empathy tent and what you're doing there. You've certainly done it a much longer time than and I wouldn't be, averse to kind of doing that on my own, but also going to the empathy tent and supporting you. One of the things I can support you outside of whatever is that I do know good de-escalation techniques, and I do know how to read people. So when you start to see people amping up for a violent confrontation, I can give you some warning signs about that, various things to do, body postures and things like that to help de-escalate. And I can use that expertise. It sounds like a lot of you have a lot of expertise, so I don't know how that would be helpful. But that was one way in which I just contribute, because I want to see empathy and the same thing that you all are seeing. And I'm heartbroken by what I see around.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you for that, Phil. Who is owner? We don't see you. Do you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we do.
Okay. This is Virginia Browning, and this is the first time I've done this, and I have a tape over my cam, and I don't really have my decor set up. So if it's okay to leave it that way tonight, I will.
Sure.
And I think I had my recording thing off too, but you can hear me because it's off now. So
we do hear you. So we're doing introductions. We like to do a little introduction about yourself, and who are you and why are you interested in building a culture of empathy?
Okay, so I heard about you a few weeks ago. You handed me a card. I went to see who those people were that everybody was calling Nazis in the park in Berkeley. I come from Salt Lake City, and I worked in political things when I was young, and I saw that when the way to really reach conservative people was to talk with them about what mattered to them. They always asked me what my religion was, so I would often get into discussions about religions with them. And my religion and their religion. I think what you're doing is really important. I don't think anything's going to change without empathy. Maybe that's enough of an introduction for now. I've worked in at KPF, not worked at KPFA, but I volunteered to try to keep KPFA radio more accessible for years. Today's a bad day for Pacifica. I don't know if you guys know that, but they lost a major court case. They're going to owe millions of dollars they don't have. And anyway, that's kind of what I've been doing for years, but I think that's certainly a place that could use more empathy, and so could this recent stuff that's happening.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
I'm Bob Brown. I live in Thousand Oaks, California, and I found out about Edwin and empathy about a month ago, and I'm here to listen.
Okay. Is that it, or is there more?
I've been meditating for over 30 years, and I think empathy sounds like the answer to a lot of the world's problems.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Let's see. We wanted to.
There's Indy also.
Oh, is there another?
Yeah.
Oh, there! I didn't see it. I didn't have the window open here wide enough. Great. Hey, so we're doing introductions. So just a little bit about yourself, and why do you want to build a culture of empathy? Sorry, you were off the screen. If you don't open the screen, it just shows a certain amount of people. So
I'm out in the ether.
So glad you're here.
Yeah, I ran across Edwin 2-3 years ago, probably, when we were doing a lot of interviews of different people. I've written a couple of business books, actually specifically technology design books, outlining how to include empathy in practices, and written them in a way that is very engineering friendly. I do not have a background in psychology. I sort of learned on the street, in a way, not in the street, but by all my clients, how to listen. So I'm interested in what Edwin's doing, especially with this empathy tent thing. And I've sort of been a lurker for many years and have learned a lot by listening to the people who are included in this group.
Okay, well, thanks for that intro. So good to see you here. Glad to see everyone. And so we usually we like to start the group with empathy circle practice. So that's the sort of the foundation of what we do is the empathic listening or active listening. And so we do about maybe half an hour or so practice in the group. And the reason is we want everyone to get really comfortable with this skill and practice, and just to get everyone to be able to take part in an empathy circle, eventually to be able to facilitate one, because that's the practice we do at the empathy tent. We do one of the practices is to facilitate empathy circles, and as well as it's a good practice to just get better at listening. So at the empathy tent, we also have people come that we just listen to, and having practice in an empathy circle, it gets us better at that, I have found. And also it helps with the mediation. So we also do mediation between people, kind of holding an empathic space, get them to use empathic listening with each other. And so that's another practice that it helps get us good at. And also to do the empathy circle in the group here, I made a few notes about why we're doing it. And the first one here is it's a place, a time and space for us to actually share what's going on with us personally. It's grounding. I find at least grounding if I'm all upset and stressed. I have a space where I can share, kind of get those feelings out. Actually, I feel more grounded and connected, and gives everyone in the team a chance to be heard. And it's also, I want to get really good at it, because in any group I've ever been in, a conflict starts. At some point, people get pissed off with each other. So it's guaranteed. So if a conflict comes up, we love conflict. Everybody can, be who you are. Don't worry about it. But we do it in an empathy circle. Say, I'm really pissed off with you. Great. Even with my nephews and nieces now, they're like 5 to 8 years old. I've got them trained, and if they start fighting, we say we have a fight. What do? We have an empathy circle, they say. So they're even on board for that. And it's a chance to practice, and also to, this is kind of like a foundational practice. So we want to develop it and innovate and refine and build on this practice. So if we can do it here, keep in mind, like, hey, what are the problems we're having? And, what are some possible solutions or, ideas to address any problems. So we usually like to have it in a smaller group. So maybe we can divide into 2 groups for half an hour and try that out. I haven't put people into groups with this program before, but I've seen it done and taken part in that before.
Can I
And
ask a question?
yeah,
How long are the turns that you're thinking we're going to take?
what do you think? We usually do 5, but maybe 3. And you have a sense of?
So I would just like to say that I would enjoy staying as one group so that I can learn about other people in the group.
Okay.
From listening to them. And if we take shorter turns, then that, that would ensure that everybody got a chance to be heard at least a little bit.
Okay, I can go for that too. It's so if we do 3 minutes, that'll be sure. Then we can. So okay, let's do that.
Or maybe 2 minutes.
2 minutes even.
3 minutes would be 10 turns, and there are 2, 4, 6, 7 of us. So that would be 1 turn apiece.
Yeah, we could go a little bit longer. See, we got 3.
Okay.
What's 3 times,
times
7?
14.
21.
21.
So if we did 2 minutes apiece, we'd at least get 2 turns
Okay.
in the 30-minute block.
Okay, let's do that then. 2 minutes. We could try it. So one of the factors in the process is like how long do we have for turns? And each amount is going to have a little different effects. There's 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and ideally you just kind of let go of everything, and everybody just talks as much as they need to. But sometimes people go on for quite a while, so it's nice to put a limit on that. But once people get practice, you can kind of up the amount of time or even let go of it. Okay, so has everybody done the empathy circle process or read the directions? Do you want to? Okay, do you want to explain it, Lou? Would you be willing to go through
Sure.
this?
So the empathy circle process is somebody takes a turn expressing, and when they start their expression, they pick someone in the circle that's going to reflect back to them. I mean, everyone in the circle listens, but it's one person's job to reflect back. So that person talks, and the person who's listening can wait for them to stop and then give a reflection, or if it's going too long and it's more than you can take in, if you're the listener, you can stop them and say, hold on a second, can I just reflect back, what I'm hearing so far? So make sure I understand. That's called a compassionate interruption. And so then so you can talk for up to 2 minutes. You don't have to take all of your time, whatever the time block is. And then if you feel heard when the person reflects back whatever they're doing, you could say, yes, I feel heard. And to kind of finish your turn, you could say, yes, I feel fully heard. And that's kind of the flag that you're complete. And then the person who was the listener, then they become the speaker, and they pick another person in the circle to listen to them. And it just goes around like that.
Okay.
Okay, we need a timekeeper.
The facilitator in the circle may break in if they hear, let's say, the listener responding to the speaker instead of the listener reflecting back to the speaker. Or, maybe if the listener is having trouble actually hearing the speaker, then the facilitator might help with, the listening, coaching them or something like that.
And thanks for that. And we need a timekeeper. Would someone like to keep time? Has a good.
I can do it.
Oh,
okay.
You want to do that, Dave? Okay. So we have with this process, we can set a topic, or we can. Sometimes I have a topic which is, are there any feelings of concern, worry, or anxiety that you're dealing with? To kind of get into the felt experience. And it can also be anything you want to talk about. So just to leave it open, it can be that topic or, anything that's kind of alive for you. So.
Did I get, it's 2 minutes we agreed on?
2 minutes. Uh-huh.
Okay.
And anyone can start if someone wants to start, speak to me or could model it.
I'll start.
Okay.
I'll speak to Bob.
Hello, David.
Hi, Bob. So we were at, let me start the timer. We were at this latest thing in Berkeley a week ago when Joey Gibson's Patriot Prayer came to town. There was a whole ruckus. Edwin brought the whole tent, the whole protest into our tent and tried to do a dialogue with Joey Gibson, the leader of the right that came into town, and it created a whole scene with a million, a whole bunch of press scrum and screaming protesters and all that. And they ran off, and we ended up getting a lot of press. I mean, not specific press, but there were a lot of articles written that used the lead-in riot breaks out at the Empathy tent, because there was too much irony for them to pass up, and they went on to write whatever they wanted to write, and they wrote essentially nothing about us. So Edwin and I and Lou have been working hard on trying to write something that we will submit as an op-ed, possibly to the Times, for the last few days.
You may want to give Bob a chance to reflect. It's quite a lot.
Okay.
So, David, what I hear, you were in Berkeley last week, and a big deal broke out at the Empathy tent, and you want, with Edwin and Lou, to write an op-ed piece for the Times to try to get some justice and righteousness out of all this chaos.
Well, I'm trying. That's what I want, is that we can explain ourselves, what we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing. And what I was going to say, my anxiety and my concern is, because I have a feeling we will get published, is that if we get published, we're going to get a lot. We're not prepared to deal with it, in the sense that we don't have a big enough team to do all the things we need to do, actually. That's my anxiety.
So I hear you say that your anxiety is, if you get published, there's going to be a lot of response to your article that you don't feel prepared to handle.
Right. I feel heard.
Okay.
Can I jump in?
No, now it's Bob's turn, and
Okay.
Bob speaks to whoever he wants.
Okay.
And he can speak back to me, or you can choose whoever you want to speak to.
I'll choose William.
Okay. I'm here to listen.
Thank you. I've had trouble sleeping the last 2 nights, responding to this Las Vegas situation. I am convinced in my heart of hearts that everything's going to turn out okay, but it's going to take a long time. And the amount of hatred and passion and energy that people have on both sides of guns, that people should use them freely, people should not have them. I'm trying to become a center of peace and calm for this universe, and I know there's millions of people doing that with me, and it's just a challenging time.
Oh, are you done?
I'm done.
Yeah, okay. Well, I heard about your concern about Las Vegas, as I share that. And also, I heard about your concern about the agitated, on the pro and con of the gun issue, ignoring the calm, peaceful center that you're trying to be, and also fighting with your own human emotions that, tend to whip one way or the other when we're exposed to such, horrific acts and the emotions that they engender.
I feel heard.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, William, you choose.
Now it's William's turn. Unless Bill has more that he wants to say, and unless Bob has more that he wants to say.
Okay.
I'm heard. I'm happy.
Okay.
choose who you'd like to speak to, Bill.
And you're Dave again?
Yeah.
All right, I'll speak to you because I just was going to ask then, have you listed your concerns? Like if that happened, is there an action list about what you would think one would need to do? This is beyond my expertise, but if you can quantify that in some sort of way, I'd certainly be interested in trying to assist in any way that I could. So that's what I wanted to say about that.
So do you want to reflect that back, Dave?
Reflect that back. So you're asking me whether I have a list, whether I understand what it is we need. And if I do, whether you might be able to help with any of that, you'd be offering to help with that.
That's right. I feel heard.
Okay. You have more time, so go ahead.
Oh, just as a way of a short, I've been dealing with a lot of friends who are dying at this particular point. And, and so that, of course, makes me reflective of my own life and what's happening here. And that's sort of what just propels me to start to try to get involved. And that's all I have to say for now.
Okay. So some of your friends are dying. You're dealing with the feelings and implications of that. And somehow, I don't think you explained how all of that is compelling you to get involved. I don't know if you want to use the time that you have to be. You didn't say that, so I don't really know.
Well, it's just that I lived through, I'm an only child, and I lived through the death of my mother, and my father's ill, and another dear friend is dying. And so that is the compulsion to look deeper into myself and to see how I might be effective. That's the motivation, as best I can explain.
Okay. So, you're having this profound and deeply emotional experiences that are making you feel like you want to do something useful, good, helpful.
Yes.
And you feel that we might be able to, participating with us might be able to help you do that.
Yes, I feel heard. Thank you.
Okay. Let me see. Let me scroll across here. I will speak to Indy. Hi, Indy.
How are you, David?
So I have a terrible echo now all of a sudden.
Oh, probably because I'm. Let me put on my headset. Sorry about that.
Wait, now it seems to have gone away, so don't worry about it.
Okay, great.
Just happened for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, so my concerns are that we'll just, if we are able to get published, that we're going to get overwhelmed with, more. Really, it's just been Edwin and I and Lou have been working on this article. Edwin and I have been the most focused on all of this. I feel we don't have a sufficient technology capacity to deal with the speed at which things happen now. And
can I ask you I guess reflect back. You said that you don't feel like you have a technology or the ability to deal with the technology and the speed. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Yeah, stuff happens in social media that if you don't respond too quickly, you can't respond, essentially. We don't have any Twitter. I think that would be useful for us. We don't have any of that. I feel Edwin has a website that is just got it's got everything you ever wanted to know about empathy. Yeah. But if we get hit, if we get published and people want to see what's going on, I don't feel like what's facing out there right now is what we really need for what's going on right now. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to, have it ready. But I feel also, since we just got all this press and everything, we should do this now. We shouldn't wait to write till we're ready.
So what I hear you saying is there's this sort of, you're being pulled apart between now is the time, now we need to capitalize on this press, but what the statements are that we have facing the public are not things that you think they can use.
No, I'm not saying that. I just think that it's not as clear, and it's not as clear as I would like it to be. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel about what's happening now. I would like to have a simpler, less comprehensive, empathy tent, separate. I don't know how Edwin feels about that, but something that's, where you go when you read our article, or you get something from us that says empathy.tent.com that is, specifically about what we're doing in this political environment, and then feed them to the rest of that stuff.
Right. Okay. So I hear that you would like to see something more like atomically focused on the empathy tent and what you're doing with regard to the current political situation, sort of as a separate thing for people to read.
Yeah, and also, that I think it would be useful if we had a Twitter, and we could, we got posted on. Somebody sent a photo of us to Milo's site, and we were not really. Edwin posted photographs and stuff, but I didn't feel that we were really able to intervene in there in an effective way. That's what I felt.
Okay, what do you mean by intervene?
I mean, by the time I saw it was like 2 hours later. There were 2,000 posts, and I, would have liked to engage those people, but it just didn't. I didn't know how to do it at that point.
Right. So you feel like even being 2 hours behind is too late, and that you don't have the sort of knowledge to be on top of it the way you feel like you should be.
It's that, but we need a team where people are doing that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, you don't have the resources to be on top of that.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a resource thing.
I feel heard. Thank you.
Okay. I guess I get to pick somebody. Can I pick owner, even though I can't see you?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I tried to take the tape off the cam and make it work, but it didn't work. So maybe I'll talk about that. Or no, you're talking to me right now, right?
I think I'm talking to you right now.
Okay.
Yeah. I think what I will bring up is something similar to what David was saying, is that I feel like I don't have the resources to handle everything that I wish I could do. There are a lot of things building up. It feels much like what David was saying, is like time is of the essence. Now is the time to capitalize on people's interest and attention. I don't have the resources to get stuff out there. In addition, I don't feel like I've got the right wording out there, that I'm explaining it in a much too maybe levels of knowledge above where it should be. It should be a little bit more clear and simple. I don't know how to handle that. I've been talking to people who want to be my intern, but they would love to be hired, and I don't have money to hire people. So this is my issue right now.
So I hear you say that you also feel that you don't have the resources to do what you would like to do right now, and time is of the essence. You'd like to be able to do it right now. You don't have the right wording, mm-hmm. and you're this part I'm not sure I'm clear about. You are 2 levels of knowledge above where you should be. Is that what?
I think what I'm saying is the way that I explain. I'm always in the process of trying to reframe the way an engineer might be able to access empathy and apply empathy. The fun part about it is that a lot of people have new perspectives, and I get those perspectives a lot. And I try to see if I can make sense of them. But when I re-explain them back out again, they're not necessarily easy to grasp. I'm not necessarily framing them in a simplistic way, and it'll take me an hour to explain things. Then people get it, but not everybody has an hour.
Okay, so now, so I see what you're saying. I think that you'd like to be able, you wish you could explain things more simply so that people could get things in a quicker way, people that don't necessarily have time to spend so much time.
Yeah.
And you also said that people want to be your intern. That would be really great. It would give you more resources, but you don't have the money to hire an intern right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Sad. I feel heard.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll just say that I tried turning my video on, and I don't seem to know how to do it since I've never done it. But I guess I'm not asking for advice, right? I'm expressing frustration at this. I see.
You can select someone to speak to, and they'll reflect back what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, okay. I guess I'll select you.
Okay.
Edwin.
All right, so I'm hearing you're feeling some frustration about your camera not working, and you're wondering if you can get some help around that.
Right, and I went to the thing down at the bottom that says general and video settings and blah, 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 and I'm afraid if I keep messing around too much, I think one of the things it said was start the computer over, and I can't really do that. So
okay, it's fine without the video. If it's okay, it's fine. And so I'm hearing you tried to work it out, but you have some concerns in terms of having to restart or something. So you're maybe feeling a bit of stress about getting your video working.
And I'm glad that I think the two next meetings are live, which will be easier for me. But I guess if I have to, I'll figure out how to do this eventually.
Mm-hmm. So you're maybe celebrating that the meetings will be live, and you won't have to figure out the technology. But if you had to, you feel like you could figure it out.
Right. I feel heard.
There's not more.
No, I guess that's enough.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll speak to Lou, and
Okay.
I feel some sadness that Virginia can't figure this out. I want her to have a good experience, so I'm feeling some sadness and trying to stay within the process and trying to figure out how I can troubleshoot and so yeah.
So you're feeling both a combination of sadness and some humor around the technical, and you're really wanting everyone to participate and have meaningful participation and feel good about that. So you feel some sadness around that, but also some humor, I'm guessing, around, I'm not sure what. But
yeah, it's just that just reflecting her problems, I guess. Instead of trying to fix her problem, I just reflected. I'm just very good at empathy. I'm not trying to fix her.
There's some people around, like the empathy process can be used for anything.
Well, one of the criticisms, you say with empathy, you don't try to fix people. So there's some humor in there somewhere, maybe some irony, or I don't know what it is. It's causing the humor. So, yeah. So let's see. I was hearing a bit of stress from different people, concern from Indy about her problems, and Dave, and I got stressed too. So, yeah, it's just so much what we're doing. It just feels like an awful big project, and how to have a feeling of kind of effectiveness is I kind of would like to have. I'm kind of feeling a bit of stress about all the different aspects, financial, how do we get out there? There's so many balls in the air that it starts getting a little overwhelming. And I would like something that's just kind of easy and fun and going forward and energetic. And actually, the empathy circle is kind of that for me. It's like it's a little, we just do empathy circles ongoing. That's kind of like a sense of clarity. Things kind of evolve and emerge.
So if I'm hearing you right, you're hearing other people's expressions of having a lot to do, feeling overwhelmed and feeling anxious. You're recognizing you feel similarly, so you're feeling some resonance with that. Just you have a lot of stuff going on, a lot of balls in the air, and you have some worry about keeping all of them going in a meaningful way. And I'm hearing you also have a desire for simplicity and smoothness and things functioning really well and easily.
Yeah.
Wanting some ease, and so that you could maybe experience more joy and more of a sense of forward movement and accomplishment.
That's it, exactly. Thank you. Wow, thanks. Feel heard. Fully heard.
Great. Okay, so I will ask William or Bill if you'll listen to me.
Sure.
So so when I check inside, like, what would I like to talk about? So I have a similar thing. So I have a lot. I have Edwin's group that I've started participating in, and that since I started doing that, the amount of time I've been spent doing that has just been growing. I've been taking on little things, and that's been rich. But it's another thing added to my plate. And I also do work with the Meta Center for Nonviolence here in Petaluma. And I have several projects going with them and started something additional new with them recently. And then I also do some consulting work. So I'm aware of, I have both joy about like making these new connections and meeting new people and the intellectual stimulation that's coming from that. And the feeling like I'm engaging in things that are meaningful is like really, I feel a lot of joy about that. And I also feel a little worried about whether I actually have the bandwidth to do all this, and am I going to drop a ball somewhere, or can I really participate in the way that I want to in all the things that I'm making the connections on.
So what I hear is that you're branching out into various areas around the issue of empathy and nonviolence and meeting all these people, and it's very stimulating. At the same time, there's a concern about expanding possibly too fast, just about your energies. And, and that's concerning with health and other things like that. And so I think you're trying to make some executive decisions as to exactly, how to spend your energy while still kind of nurturing yourself and your family.
Yes, thank you. It's not at all about health. It's actually more about being able to fulfill my commitments. So if I agree to these things, or say, or even if it's not like a clear commitment, but more just like an intention that I've stepped into a relationship or a venue, and I want to be able to make a contribution, will I be able to keep all the balls in the air? I think it's more around that.
Right. So it's more about being effective than a concern for your health.
And being able to keep my agreements.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Welcome. Okay. All right. I'll talk to Edie.
Okay. Let's make sure the echo goes away.
No echo.
Okay. Hello, Bill.
Now it's going away. All right. Well, I don't have too much to say, except that what I feel is that I find people who are in the same sort of emotional existential dilemmas that I am, and I find that I'm entering this process at a period of struggle and somewhat, a unease, not unease or lack of faith in the method or the basic core values, but in how to then effectively demonstrate that and be effective out there.
Okay.
And I guess the only thing I have to say about that is I really appreciate people sharing that, because it's sharing our vulnerabilities, which is a very hard thing to do, but which is key toward greater understanding of ourselves. So I just want to express my appreciation to you all for doing that.
Okay, so I hear you saying that you're kind of pleased that you've heard a lot of people saying some of the existential things that you yourself are feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of maybe connection there, but there's unease about how this will work going forward. Not that you disbelieve in the core, the fact that it works, it works, but how can it actually be effective? And then I heard you saying that that you do appreciate having people kind of, I think I heard you say you appreciate having people at your intellectual level sort of being here for you.
Yeah, to be emotionally vulnerable.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I teach special ed, so I certainly appreciate the intellectual stimulation, believe me. But I find great strengths within people of all different abilities, and so I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay.
Not that, So thank you. I felt I'd been heard.
Great. Oh, I guess it's me. I guess talk. I'm so used to listening. Lou, I will pick you.
Okay.
Although I probably should have picked Bob, because then that would sort of make it.
I'll pick Bob.
Huh?
I'll pick
Okay, you pick Bob. You pick Bob. Absolutely. Now, do I talk about a different thing? I can talk about a different topic.
Whatever you'd like to talk about.
Okay. One of the things that I do not have in my life any sort of support for this sort of stupid. I'm calling and I know I'm not supposed to call myself stupid, but this feeling inside of myself that I feel fear about bombs from North Korea. I feel fear about the direction our government is headed. I feel fear about the things that we will lose in the next year or two. Hopefully it isn't going to go longer than that, but all these things that we lose, I hope that it will work out, because there are so many people, but then all of these people are within my bubble. And so I wonder, I'm just afraid. How do I deal with that?
So what I'm hearing is that when you think about the current political climate and the things that could happen with conflict, say in North Korea, or other kinds of social changes that are happening that could harm people, you have a lot of fear about how you or the people that matter to you might be affected by that.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite sure what to do with that.
Yeah, I feel as if it's if it's something that as an adult I should say, okay, yes, I'm aware that I have that fear, but I can't let it interfere with me or my work. And to the most part I don't, except every once in a while my imagination sends me a shot of whatever I'm looking at or whatever I'm driving past ruined in smoking ruins. I'm stop that.
So there's a part of you that definitely feels that fear,
mm-hmm.
and that imagines, horrible things that could happen. And there's another part of you that kind of says, hey, don't give in to your fear. Don't feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way. And so those two parts of you kind of battle each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing I'm not sure how you feel about that or what you want to do about that.
I guess I'm maybe confused and embarrassed that I have that voice and that little imagination half of me. Maybe everybody does, and maybe they don't. When you're more mature, maybe you have left that behind.
So you're embarrassed by the fact that you have that struggle inside, and that you have, let's say, these competing voices, and you kind of wonder if other people feel those things too. And there's a part of you that thinks, if I was really mature and grown up, I wouldn't have that problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess so. Yeah. I'm surprised. I'm laughing at it. Oh, 2 minutes, he's saying.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I feel heard. Thank you.
Okay.
I thought he was going peace.
Yeah, peace.
All right, I'll do this next time.
So
I didn't want to interrupt.
I'll choose
Thank
Bill.
you.
Yeah, and this will be the last one just for a time.
I'm sorry, I'll choose Bob. Sorry. Okay, so what's alive in me is wanting to respond to what Ida said, which is that I also experience many different voices inside of me. A little kid voice, a scared voice, like a joyful little kid voice, a scared little kid voice, and a judger, a critic voice. Those are all alive in me. And I've learned to accept them, not like try to get rid of them, but to accept them, but to also remember that I don't have to listen to them all the time. I can make a choice about, like, okay, I hear you there. I hear your concern. And, I'm gonna listen to this nurturing voice over here that tells me I'm okay, and that I should remember to breathe, and that I do know what I'm doing. I just need to relax and remember to breathe. That. So I also have a nurturing voice inside me that can remind me of, like, who I am and what my strengths are.
Let me reflect this.
Go ahead.
So you have various aspects of your person inside of you, and they speak. One is a joyful little boy. One is an afraid little boy. One is a critic. And the one that you seem to smile most about is the nurturer that listens to all of them and is the adult in the room, so to speak.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you hearing all that. Let's see, is there anything else I want to say? I'll say, so I'm enjoying this process, and I'm reminded of how, so it's easy for me and my critic, who thinks he's very smart and knows everything and knows exactly what to do, to think, oh, I don't need this, like, reflecting back. I know people know if I understand them, and I can tell if I'm being understood by the other person. I don't need them to reflect me back. But when I actually do participate in this process, and I hear my feelings and my thinking being reflected back to me, it is fascinating to me how much actually, so I guess it's nurturing to me. I feel cared for, and I feel seen in a way that warms me, like it feels like a hug. And I also, listening to others do it to others, like the things that I learn about people from hearing them and then watching them being listened to, also it really warms my heart. And so I'm just appreciating that.
So as you partake in this process, the inner voice of the critic sometimes is heard, and the voice you welcome are the voices of your partners in this process who affirm you for who you really are.
Yes, thank you. And that I feel that I'm surprised sometimes at how much it warms my heart, like how much I feel seen and loved. I mean, that's kind of a weird word to use when, we all don't know each other very well, but I feel loved by being seen and heard this way.
So I hear you saying you feel loved by the group, and that's a wonderful feeling which surprises you.
Yes, thank you. I feel heard.
Okay. Time's up.
So that was the end of our empathy circle part, and maybe we can go around, since Lou just gave his experience of the circle. Could we go around just like 30 seconds, like how was taking part in an empathic listening empathy circle process? And I'll jump in. And I always enjoy it. I'm like Lou. I'm attracted to it. So, Dave always makes fun of me. He said, "Oh, you really need this and this kind of stuff," but I really do, because I find it very nurturing, very supportive, and I always learn something in the process. And it also makes kind of feel safe and gives me a space to kind of speak into, which I find very supportive and enjoy hearing everyone else. So that's me. If anyone else would like to jump in, just how was this?
I'll speak.
Okay.
It's true. I like, part of me finds it, resists it, but when we do it, I like it. And I was skeptical that we could have a meeting like this with so many of us online and it would work. And it's where I find it's working really pretty effectively. So that's nice. And I think it feels nice to be part of this group. It's nice that those of you who haven't been part of us, worked with us before, are here. And I feel appreciative that you're here. And feels like, a nice group of people that feel like we can work together well. It feels good. Somebody else?
I guess.
Go. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. I guess the first round felt more artificial. The second round felt better. When by artificial, I mean it felt like you waited for someone to finish and then you just repeated back what they said. But when Edwin was listening to the person named as owner, then I heard him saying things, sort of, it flowed a little bit more. It was a little bit more back and forth. And I realized that people were then starting to be able to re-explain what they were saying. And so I think the second round went better. Or felt to me, I saw the value more. I think the second thing that I would say about it is that when I do my listening sessions for clients, I am usually digging. I'm usually digging to find out what's going through their heads, what their thinking or their reasoning is. So I had to force myself to stop that and just sort of hear what the person was saying at the surface level. Probably the 2 minutes was what was preventing us from digging.
Okay. Well, are you done?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I just want to express my appreciation. I have a cousin who's a doctor who's like one of the best listeners in the world. I mean, you just want to talk to him, and that's such a rare and skill. So I'm appreciative, and that's a skill I'd really like to improve at. So I hope to see you again, well, sometime soon.
So who's left?
Bob or Virginia?
Yeah, I can go, and I think I unmuted everything.
Mm-hmm. I hear you.
Pardon?
I hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear you too.
This is interesting because I wasn't sure ahead of time that it was video. I should have checked, and I'm glad that my frantic manner isn't on video in a way. But it makes me realize that this is just one more technology thing that I really should learn, and it's in some ways it's better. It could be better than live because I could actually see myself, which might be horrifying, but it could be a good thing. So I like the whole empathy process, and I appreciate having been heard, and this is an interesting way to do it.
Bob?
What a joy it is to be part of this wonderful group of people who listen and care. And I feel tremendously supported and affirmed, and I'm glad to be here.
Okay, great, thanks. So I think everybody went. So the next is about 20 minutes about the past actions report. So we had last week on the Sunday the 24th, Dave, I, Lou, Pablo, and Stephanie were at, I think it was Sunday, it was at UC Berkeley. We set up the empathy tent there. And then Monday, I don't think we set up, did we? Do you remember?
No, we were there for Milo on Sunday.
On Sunday. Then we went to Tuesday, the 26th, and it was Edwin, Dave, David, and Chris. And then on the 27th, it was Edwin, Dave, and David. We went and set up the tent on Sproul Plaza on all these. So I thought we'd just go through, give a little report on how that went. For me, the Sunday was, the thing that really stood out was this empathy circle or mediation we did with a guy named Sabo. And he's a right-wing artist who does these posters, and it seems to be fairly well-known. And we didn't know anything about him, but we decided to do a mediation between the left and the right, and we kind of just reached out to who was handy, and Dave had a relationship with him, knew him from Los Angeles, and he sat down, and we got someone else who was said he was a communist and labor organizer, and we sat them down. The communist Osebo said that he reached out to shake hands. The communist said, "I don't know who you are. I'm not going to shake your hands until I know." So they wouldn't shake hands. I started doing the mediation, and then it was a little tough with Sabo because he was really kind of making fun of the process, not stepping in. And then Lou came and sat down and then started doing the mediation. It was just like amazing to watch him have how he did it and his approaches. So I thought we could just maybe each report a little bit about our experience. I thought it was like a great experience. I just hope we can get some photographs and so forth from it. And it was kind of like a high point for me, that experience. I don't know how, Lou, do you want to share how that was for you, and then Dave?
Sure. So, it was a very, so this was the third Empathy Tent event that I had been at, and it was the most conflict. There were two groups there. There was a group that was doing a rally, and then there was a counter rally group, and they were all talking over each other at the same time. Nobody was really listening to each other, and it was very loud. They had bullhorns, and they were shouting at each other, and we had the tent over on the side, and I went out of the tent and tried and engaged people out in the crowd, and mostly approached them by saying, "So, how are you feeling today? And how do you feel about what you're seeing here?" And then just listening to them, and then usually, trying to reflect back what I'm hearing them say and what's important to them. And then at some point talking to them about listening, the importance of listening, and how, I've been listening to them, and, would they go listen to somebody, and spread good listening. That was kind of the approach I was taking. I've had an insight since then that what would be good to do would be to go out into the crowd and ask people if they're interested in engaging in constructive dialogue. And then if they say yes, going with them to try to find someone else that would want to do that, and then bring them back to the tent. So one of the things I was not clear about in doing work at the tent was how do I get people to engage in constructive dialogue? So I had this important insight, about a way to do it. And the next time I'm working at the tent, I'm going to try that out. We'll see how it works. The other thing that was significant for me was the mediation that Edwin was describing, where he was kind of doing it, and I kind of knelt down next to what was going on to kind of listen to it. And after listening for about 3 minutes and making the judgment that I did not see much listening going on, one guy, Sabo, was kind of dominating the conversation, and he really wasn't listening. The two people were starting to talk over each other. I kind of interrupted him and asked him if he understood what we were trying to do here, and if he wanted to participate in that, that we were trying to do dialogue and that involved listening, and did he understand what listening was? And he did a lot of trying to talk over me. And so I was pretty vigorous about interrupting him and looking at him in the eye, trying to make contact with him to get him to listen to me. And that eventually did work. He did eventually start listening to me, and reflecting back that, yes, he did want to participate. And, I understood, do you understand that means that you need to listen? He said, yes. And I said, so can you reflect back what you're hearing me say? And first he said, no, I have no idea what you said. And then, so after a couple more, tries, he eventually did. And then I said, okay, so now why don't you take a turn as a speaker? And he spoke, and we kind of got the process going. And and then, I did have to intervene other times when he kind of lapsed back into other things. So it was a good lesson for me in kind of monitoring the process and really seeing, is the process happening? And if somebody is there kind of just bowling over people and not really doing the process, that it is possible to intervene and try to get them, find out actually if they want to agree to do what we're there to do. And if not, then, say, well, okay, fine, then we're not doing this, or, why don't we get someone else that wants to do this?
Okay, how is it for you, Dave?
Well, so I'll say that usually at most of these things, it's been Edwin and I and a couple of other less experienced. Not that I'm all that experienced, but I've been to a bunch of these things with Edwin. We have a kind of way we work together. Usually what goes on is, I call myself the missionary. I go out and I try to find people to do the dialogues. And in that process, I actually dialogue. I kind of wear two hats. I've got this empathy shirt on, and I go out there, and it's like, this is who we are. They tend to ask me, so are you a liberal? And I say, yeah, I'm a liberal, but I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers. And we tend to start talking about stuff, politics. And then I try to get people to actually come to the tent. And when there's two people that need a facilitator, Edwin does the facilitation. I have really not done the facilitation. And that's been a those are roles we've more or less stuck to. We need more people so we can have more roles. This Sabo, I had been talking to him. This was the third time I'd had interactions with him. First in LA, when we were doing filmed mediation down there. And then on a week before at Ben Shapiro, when Ben Shapiro was here. And I didn't know who he was. And even though he had said to me that he was supposed to speak at Milo's event, I didn't think to figure out who he was. So anyway, I saw him again and invited him into the tent. And he had a camera crew that was following him around. He came into the tent, and then a woman from the Los Angeles Times said, "Oh, that's Sabo." And anyway, it turns out that he's a propagandist. And he's like a right-wing Shepard Fairey. If you know who Shepard Fairey made the Hope poster, for Obama, he's a much more, it's much more, it's it's sort of tongue-in-cheek, sophisticated stuff. You should look it up. Sabo, street artist. It's interesting to know who he is. He's a famous guy on the right. And he's a propagandist, so that's probably partly why it was hard for him to get the dialogue. I don't want to take up more time. It was a good, the events, I always have I tell this to Edwin every time, we go in the morning and I'm kind of like, oh God. And then it's just so invigorating. The whole thing is always just really a big experience. And we leave there super animated.
Yeah, and actually that mediation ended with the communist, I can't remember his name, sorry about that, but he did shake hands. So and he actually shared his water with Sabo too. It's like, Sabo was, I'm so thirsty. And the guy had some water, so you can have some water. And then he still wouldn't shake hands. He said, come on, I'm drinking your water, you can shake hands. And so they did shake hands. So that felt, like, it feels like a connection. When we did the mediations in LA with 6 pairs, they all ended in hugs. So, it feels like that was like a success. Then on Tuesday, like I was saying, it was, oh yeah, you're muted.
I just want to add one more thing, and that is that this event on Sunday was the first event I went to that was billed as, like big protest, that there was going to be a rally and counter protesters and probably police there and everything. And I was a little bit worried about going because I haven't been in many situations like that before. And, I didn't know how safe or unsafe it might be. And I just want people to know that, like, I did not feel unsafe at all, ever, the whole time, even though there were people that were screaming and shouting and there were a lot of police around, but I never felt like my safety was in jeopardy. And, I don't know how many of you have participated in situations like that before. I had not much. And so I thought that's an important thing to say, that while these things tend to look very dangerous on the news because they're showing you the most conflicting moments, and you're not seeing, not much context usually. Like if you showed the wide context, there's a little fight going over here, and then there are millions of other people who are just milling around and, staying away from the fight or whatever. I really didn't feel unsafe at all.
Indy?
What about your feeling of safety with sort of like psychic safety, maybe I should say? This is what I am worried about, being maybe female and possibly being, told nasty things that I don't like being in front of. But in addition to that, like noise levels, yelling. I hate it when people yell. So I cringe, and I'm not very good at operating under those conditions. How was that for you?
So I have been in a lot of difficult emotional situations before. I think I said in my introduction, one of the things I do is teach leadership and conflict resolution. So I've been in a lot of very emotionally intense situations, and I've been called lots of names and stuff. So I have a lot of stability around there. It takes a lot to trigger me in those situations. And I would say, part of doing social change work is preparing yourself. So, if you're triggered easily by screaming and loud noises, or if someone had called you a name and that would really get to you, then there's just preparation work that you need to do for that. And, if that's something I'd be happy to do some of, if there are people that want to do some of that work in preparation for joining in.
I would definitely have to do that sort of work. I am not prepared.
Okay. Well, the empathic listening that we are doing, this is preparation here. So when we started the empathy tent, it's been a bit, people come at different times, that becomes a problem. But when everyone's there, we would have like an empathy circle to begin with and to debrief. and all that I find is very good for, one form of prep. And then also, if you do have, I've been in this situation where I start getting kind of upset, people are kind of attacking me. And then I have somebody that I go to and say, I need a little emergency empathy, and just listen. They just listen. Okay, I feel good now. That happened in LA.
Yeah. I would need more than that. Like just even looking up Sabo street artist and just seeing the Google results, not even looking at images, I'm like, no.
Right. Yeah, you have to know your comfort level. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an intense. I'll just say some of the stuff's been intense. I don't feel that stuff personally. I don't know that it's good that I don't feel it, but I don't really. I mean, we did. We'll talk about Tuesday. Tuesday was really intense.
Yeah. So if you want to talk about that, that was a more intense
right.
experience.
And I've had other experiences. I've had a dialogue with 4 white supremacists with 10 people watching where I was in the dialogue. That was pretty intense. But I don't get triggered, to use that terminology. I don't feel angry or any of that stuff. There was on Tuesday, they wouldn't let us into Sproul Plaza at Berkeley, which is, where it's the famous steps, Mario Savio free speech steps. That area was all cordoned off, barricaded. You had to go through a metal detector and all that. They wouldn't let us bring our tent in there, so we were outside that area. And Milo, no, it wasn't Milo. This guy, Joey Gibson, came. And he wasn't, I don't know whether he was speaking or whatever, but Edwin was very concerned that we were not where the action was. And I was hanging out. You can watch, there's a live stream of this whole thing, which we can send you. There's somebody we met who was live streaming to Facebook, and he came and interviewed me for quite a while. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Edwin comes walking up. Who wants to do an empathy circle with Joey Gibson, who is the leader of this right-wing group, and who Edwin has done work with before. And so he came, and the whole protest literally came to the tent, and it felt like the whole protest was in the tent. And he came to the tent, and he had like a bunch of these big guys, some of whom, are what they call Proud Boys. They're right-wing, you can call them whatever, you can look them up. The Proud Boys, they're big people. The left, by any means necessary, refused fascism, all that. They were blocked from getting in the tent, and they were screaming, no KK, no whatever they say, no hate, no racism, no KK. They were screaming, and Edwin is trying to do this dialogue. It was so loud that somebody had a bullhorn. They were doing the dialogue with a bullhorn. The media was there. There were 5, 7 cameras. I mean, it was a scene, and I felt like this is crazy. And it was just a scene, and we spent a lot of time afterwards talking about whether that made sense, whether we should do something like that again. We've had a lot of discussion about it, but we got a lot of press from it. That's the bottom line. We got a huge amount of press from it, and Edwin didn't feel what I felt actually at that time. Want to talk about it?
Yeah, it was the mediation was with Joey Gibson and a guy named Rod, who's more on the left and travels to a lot of these demonstrations. And the mediation was actually going very well. Like, they were really listening. Joey Gibson had done a mediation before, an empathy circle. So he had like about 35 minutes of practice already with it. And so they were actually, and Rob was pretty good in listening. So it was actually going well. It felt like quite, even though we had to use the bullhorn for the dialogue just to be heard, it was going well. And I thought, this is going well. But then the folks from BAM were just screaming and yelling and kind of pushing. I guess, I don't know if they were trying to get into the tent or what, and they were being pushed back. So it was kind of like, some scuffles on the outside. And so that's kind of what kind of closed the dialogue, is we were trying to get them to calm down by, I think Dave was concerned about what was going on. He asked Joey Gibson to, I think, tell his people to, be relaxed and not to push back. Is what I understood it. And then we kind of got up and started talking. And then once we got up and tried to calm the group, all the media kind of jumped in and then started asking questions. So we got distracted from doing the empathy circle. But the circle itself was really good. It was working really well, except for the outside group trying to, maybe shut it down. And as I think about it now, I probably should have gone and addressed them. And maybe Dave could have just held the circle, because it was all you had to do was just be there, and they were kind of keeping them on track. So so it was a learning experience. Indy, since you're from the design, it's like, try, prototype, test, fail early, fail often, you succeed sooner. And some people might say it's a failure. I don't think so, but even if you do, it's like, we celebrate our failures. Yay!
Yay!
We failed! So, we're not going to worry about it. And so anyway, I just kind of see it as, we did this. We had so many successful mediations between the left and right. We didn't even talk about that. We had Sabo, that worked out really well. Last week, the week before, we had Amber Cummings, who was the person that organized the right-wing march in Berkeley, and she did an empathy circle with someone, and that really worked out. And she posted all over her website, "You guys are brilliant. I love the empathy tent," all this kind of stuff. So she's like Amber's like a total fan, and so there's been, a lot of, positives. There's been this one, which was a little tough, and now we're in a sort of a dialogue now with the Antifa and BAM, and it's like we need to kind of keep a dialogue, get a dialogue going. So I think Dave will talk about that in a minute, what he was doing there. And then on Wednesday was the next event, and Dave was a little concerned. I thought, let's go there at noon. He said, I don't think I go at noon. So I went there, and, just on my own with the T-shirt, without the whole tent. I couldn't park nearby. And I just walked around the crowd, and that was really good. I felt to show a presence. We are there. We're here. I talked to people. And then at 4:00, Dave came, and then one of the student. There was a class, student-led class on empathy, and Alyssa, who's one of the facility teachers in it, she came, and we went and got the tent. We all had our T-shirts on, and then at 5:00, the whole class came of about 24 students. We talked about our experience like we're doing here, and then we divided into empathy circles, and had some some really nice dialogues. And one of the students, she was just hearing what we were talking about, and then she was just sharing how her father is very kind of conservative, and he's kind of like withdrawn, and she's growing, becoming, her politics is changing, so she's kind of moving away from that. She feels a sense of alienation, and she just started crying, just for that. And said, I want to do these empathy circles, with my family. So I was very touching that story. And then the class ended, and then here comes Joey Gibson, and he comes. I guess he talked to Dave, and he said, there's this guy Kyle Chapman, who's a real hero on the right, because he was one of the first to start fighting in Berkeley. And he even got, so he's become really well known on the right. And then I guess Joey told you that Kyle needs this empathy circle. You need some empathy circle training. I don't know what he said.
And the implication, I brought him here specifically to do it. My feeling was he wanted him to learn how to listen, and that's why he brought him, actually. So yeah. So we did that too, and Edwin and I spent half an hour. We've developed a relationship with this guy who's a real leader on the right, on the far right, whatever you want to call it. He offered to come back and do private dialogue with people from Antifa if they're willing, but that's hard to arrange. So the reason I was concerned about going back on Wednesday was I was concerned that the left, this situation on Tuesday was Yvette Falarka. I don't know who she is. She's one of the leaders of By Any Means Necessary, was there. I felt that we created a situation that might look not so good for her, in that he was willing to dialogue and she wasn't, and that feeds the narrative of the right, which is that the left is intolerant. And the left, I was concerned that the left people, who watch this and think this way, think that we're enabling the right. So on Sunday, we're enabling these people on the right to make themselves seem reasonable when they're not, actually. And so I went on Sunday to a Refuse Fascism meeting. That's a group that's trying to organize, big protests on November 4th. They want to sort of start a street protest that ultimately leads to the removal of the Pence regime, they call it. And I went to a meeting of theirs. I actually know somebody. And I thought it was going to be a big meeting with Antifa and all kinds of people. And I was prepared to stand up to defend ourselves because I felt it was becoming necessary. And because I was getting afraid if they really decide that we're their enemies, that we could get hurt, actually. And so I went to the meeting. I listened to their whole thing about what their plans are, which I'd be happy to tell you about. But anyway, at the end of the meeting, I told them why we're doing what we're doing and what we're doing. And I said we would love it if you would get involved. And they were very appreciative. And I spent an hour talking with some of those people afterwards who said, yeah, people have been saying in Antifa that I know that you guys are a plant of the right and this and that. And so my concerns were real. But I think they felt that I was genuine and not against them. And they said they would spread the word. So that seemed good to me. I can't hear you.
Okay. So it's an ongoing dialogue.
Yeah, I asked them whether they could pass the word on to Yvette that I would like to speak with her, and that Joey Gibson has offered to do private dialogue with her, and stuff like that. Yeah, and we'll have to see.
I also wanted to mention that the circle on Wednesday with Kyle Chapman and someone from more on the left, we actually went for almost half an hour, and that was recorded as well, and it was put on Joey Gibson's. He did live streaming of it, so we have a fair few recordings of these different empathy circles that are out there, and so we're continuing with the work, and so we go into the project report. So we have the projects in the works.
Actually, can I make a comment?
Sorry, sure.
I just want to say that it's very reassuring to me to hear that when either the left or the right is approached and it's explained what we're trying to do, and we're obviously being honest about what we're trying to do, so that sincerity comes across, that both are open to dialoguing and or at least considering it. And I think that principle or that the principle that we are operating on is that, you know, if people are being honest and sincere, then, you know, that it's people's fear and distrust that keeps them from talking to one another, or that makes it that someone wants to keep someone else at a distance or say, I don't want to talk to that person. But when a person becomes convinced that, okay, this person really is interested in listening and having dialogue, then they open up. So there's a part of them that actually does want that, as long as they feel safe. And I think that's encouraging to see, and it's important for us to keep in mind as we talk to whoever we talk to.
It seems quite universal that people want, even like Kyle Chapman, who's supposedly this really tough, you know, aggressive person. He's there and he was trying to do the process. Like it was a little bit like Sabo to begin with. He tried to kind of make fun of it, and then I kept him on track. He said, "Oh, this is serious, okay," and then he went with it and he really tried. You know? So yeah, that's encouraging for me too, to see that. And every time there's a success in it, I feel more grounded and as well. And actually, in terms of the left, one of the projects, you know, talking about projects in the last 20 minutes here, is Indivisible. I'm part of Indivisible Berkeley, and we started a project there on how we can bring the left together, because there's a lot of disunity, a lot of dissension within the left, and so we're started a kind of a subgroup on indivisible, you know, or blue unity. Like, how do we bring the left together through dialogue? So it's pretty much doing what we're doing. I mean, there's different threads. That's the part I'm working on. Some others work on more of a curriculum. So the part that we're doing is setting up 3 online empathy circles for the left. We have one Friday, and Lou is taking part in that. And we have a couple other people who are kind of organizers within Indivisible taking part. Then next week, we'd like to schedule a couple more. I'd like to schedule 3 of those before the next meeting. And then the idea is that we can engage with Indivisible and get people familiar with empathy, learn empathic listening, and then we can scale up to doing a workshop. So Dave has talked about, you know, we could rent a space and hold it, or do it within one of the meetings for Indivisible, their regular Berkeley meetings. And the steering committee is interested in what we're doing and is supportive. And Lou is, you know, his wife is very active, as I understand it, in Indivisible in Marin. And so if it's something that we could create that could be replicable, it could go to other Indivisibles. I was just on a call with the main group from Indivisible. They had something like, you know, 60 or 100 people on a call like this. So if we can get something going that's reproducible, it'd be, you know, within the Indivisible network, that I think could be really effective. And the idea there is for me, is if we get in-group empathy going, and everybody wants, our group needs to work better together, I'd be glad to teach the conservatives, you know, in-group empathy too, in the hope that they learn kind of these processes, and then we can get kind of cross-party dialogue going. So that is one project. And Dave, you want to say a little bit about the article that you're...
I don't want to say, you know, I don't need to say much about it. We're trying to take advantage of the press we got and the mischaracterization to say we want to say what we're doing, what we're really doing. And, you know, we've worked really hard for a few days now to put together a very concise description, Lou and I and Edwin, of what we're doing, and hopefully we'll get it published and it'll really create some momentum for us. What I'd like to say is not about that, is that, you know, what we really need, I've had this hope that we could develop these relationships and that we could ultimately go to some of these events with, you know, a lot of people prepared to facilitate dialogue. And one of the things I'm thinking that would be really good to do would be to, as Edwin mentioned, rent a hall and, you know, have an event in Berkeley called how to engage the right when they come to town, where we would teach everybody the empathy circle process, and we would really try to convince them that they should come and do this, you know. And but we need to feel that we have a team of people that could actually facilitate in that situation. So that's one of the things that I would hope you all would get interested in doing with us, actually. You know.
Yeah, that's a big challenge, is how might we get more people involved in the work that we're doing. And
because we feel if we had enough people at some of these events, we could actually possibly transform.
Yeah.
Are you okay? We could transform the event into everybody says, okay, let's talk to each other.
I feel if we'd had, you know, 5 more people who were really good at mediation, even that Joey Gibson event could have been transformed. It's like it's a big opportunity, those kind of situations, for transformation to happen. So, you know, if we could have been able to listen, had some people listening to, like BAM, and they when they came to the tent, it could have, you know, something could have transformed. So, so yeah, that's so the other was the introductory empathy circle video. Do you want to just say a few words about that, Lou?
Sure. So Edwin and I kind of brainstormed this idea that we could make an introductory video that demonstrates the empathy circle process. And at first we were thinking maybe we would create some empathy circles and record them so that we would have material that we could use in a demonstration video. And then I pointed out to Edwin that he'd made lots of recordings already, and that, you know, probably some authentic process would be good, as opposed to making stuff that just looks very nice but isn't maybe that real. And so I've been reviewing recordings of empathy circles that have been done already and making notes about parts of it that we might use. And I have not started editing yet, but so I'm in a process of doing that. And I think, you know, in terms of creating either helping people that join the group prepare, or I think actually more in the vein of creating a kit, you know, so if people were interested in adopting this process, that they could download a sheet describing what you do and then watch a video showing what it looks like, you know, then they would have the beginnings of something. Although it'd probably be good to encourage people to, like, if they were going to facilitate a circle, to like join a circle with a facilitator so that they could experience it firsthand or something. It'd be good to have some kind of intermediate step as opposed to just sending them off completely on their own, because a video and a piece of paper probably don't capture the process enough or give them enough experience to do that successfully.
Yes, creating a whole pathway into the process, make it really easy.
Yeah,
it's what's needed. There's the more, and that's where, if everyone does that, you know, try to start your own empathy circle, you know, with your own family, friends, and practice, and you know, just get as familiar with as possible with the process, and think in terms of design, like, how can I make this easier in my family, to implement it in my family or with my friends, and what are the steps that are needed, and what's the experience, or any problems, and how could we address those problems? And so it's building that whole pathway. So the other thing is the next project here was Pablo. He didn't come today, but he contacted James Damore, who had worked at Google and had been fired because of a paper he wrote, and it became a big issue between the left and the right. And I had Pablo and I talked to him a couple days ago, and actually did a 2-hour empathy circle with him. And at the end, he said, "Oh, I want to learn more about how to, do this basically." So we're looking at organizing an empathy circle with him and some of his critics on the left. And this became a big issue in tech, in the technology field. It was in the news quite a bit, and the right, made a big issue of it, and that people on the right aren't being heard in the tech field, and their views are being suppressed, and so it became a big topic there. And so if we could bring two sides together to do an empathy circle and show it and model it, that could. And you maybe have some ideas about that. Maybe you'd be a good person to be in the circle, or we're looking for someone.
Yeah, I maybe could be, but I just wanted to say there was also another issue. It wasn't just left and right. It was very much that technology, the technology culture sort of is quote unquote broken because it runs on a meritocracy sort of a philosophy. And that it's also very misogynist and anti-diversity, or mistrusting of diversity. And because of this meritocracy philosophy. And so that's what has been going around in the technology circles, is that, hey, it's broken, we've got to fix it, it's broken, culture is broken. Cultures, especially, people will not get hired because, quote unquote, they don't fit into the culture here. The technology culture, everybody's thinking sort of the same way, and we all adhere to this meritocracy philosophy. Anyway, that's just a little bit more background on that. I might be interested in doing that.
Yeah, that would be, we were looking for, he didn't know who would be a good person. There was the woman in tech who had been a critic. I can't
Ellen
remember.
Powell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be a critic too.
You'd be a critic.
We want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, he also he also is saying I think the most inflammatory thing he said, wasn't it, that men are more capable than women?
That was one of the, it's it stems directly from his meritocracy philosophy, and also this convention of correlation is causation.
Well, so if you understand the issues, you would be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, cool.
I would need, like Lou offered earlier, to prepare me, because I am triggered very easily. So I would need preparation.
Well, Edwin will also hold the space, so you don't have to worry about that. I mean, I don't know if you have to worry about it or not, but he will be able to hold the
Instead of the mediate, then you could also, if you want to be heard, you could do like a pre-circle with Lou too, if that feels comfortable, which is you just spend like up to half an hour just sharing what your concerns are, and you have sort of a pre-circle where you're just heard about what's if
I mean,
that's what you're
I can
kind of
easily
wanting.
get into the persona of just asking him things and like dropping my emotional reaction, but I will feel as if I'd been run over by a garbage truck afterward, and I don't know if I especially want.
Edwin said he's a very soft and quiet person.
Is he?
Yeah, very much so. And he was so, we talked for over an hour on empathy. He just wanted to understand, he was just really, gently wanting to really understand specifics. I was really impressed. It's like
that's awesome, because I just announced Empathy for Engineers webinar, free webinar. Something on the stove is boiling over. I have to go get it. Hang on a second.
Cool.
So that's great.
Also, that's a new definition of meritocracy that I'm familiar with, because meritocracy was basically used after the monarchy, and it was based on your ability, which kind of indicates that it doesn't make a difference your race or religion or your sex. So that's a new iteration that I hadn't heard before.
Well, it could definitely, I hadn't heard any of this, so it doesn't matter to me what the issues are so much. It's just that we have, that we can hold the space for people to dialogue about it. So
yeah, I've read a lot about it, and I know a lot of people who had published against it. So, or at least in the technology sphere, I don't know. That's my bubble.
Okay, well, that was the question was, what do we do next? And how do people want to be involved? If you have any projects you'd like to take on, we're not quite sure when the next Empathy Tent pop-up will be, but setting up in Sproul Plaza, I think, is the next. We're really trying to have a presence there and really connect with the students. And there's seems to be a real central place there around Sproul Plaza, and for a lot of what's happening. And so that's one thing, is setting up there over the next couple of weeks, maybe once or twice a week or something. We can see. We haven't really talked about it. We've been doing all these other things. So I don't know, does anyone have what it is that you would like to, any ideas, or would you like to work on, or I'm not quite sure how to approach it. But.
I have something, and since you can't see me, I'm just jumping in Virginia here.
Okay.
I keep thinking Dave really brought this point strongly into my mind, which is kind of in there anyway. He said it better than I'm going to be able to say it, but this idea that so much work with the right, and there are people on the left that are going to say, because the right is making hay of this too, that it's not enough. Somehow the balance is off. I'm not saying it right, but I have a friend, a good friend, and then somebody I had been working with. The woman is a very good friend of Cornel West, and she's in Antifa. And my good friend tends to be on that side too. And they're the ones that seem so recalcitrant. And I would like to have more dialogue with these two people that I've come in contact with, my friend and then this other woman. And then I was thinking of somebody like Cornel West, who seems like a very empathetic presence, and yet he's definitely on the side, quote, of Antifa. And I wonder if there's something that I could do in that realm with my two friends, maybe engage in a mediation, or have somebody help me talk to even just my one friend.
I mean, one of the things we could do, what this process enables with us on the web, usually those people, they don't want us to know who they are. So I don't know if that's an issue, but
that isn't an issue for these two people that I'm thinking of.
We'll see.
They're both organizers.
So Joey Gibson, who, both Edmund and I like quite a bit, and I feel Joey Gibson is reachable in the sense that, I don't want to tell Joey Gibson what to do. I mean, who he should be, but I feel that, he's not a simple person. He's a smart guy, and he is empathic. And I said to him last time that I think he should not come here anymore and tell everybody that, he's here to destroy by any means necessary in Antifa. He should, because I asked him, do you even know why everybody's so mad at you? Do you know? And he started to say, well, they're intolerant. And I said, yeah, but you don't really know, do you? And he said, no, I don't. So I said, well, I think you should come here to listen. You should say, I'm going to come here and I'm going to listen, and I'll listen all day. Tell me what this is all about, And he said, yeah, okay, I hear you. And he agreed that he would be willing to come here and meet with people in Antifa privately and do dialogue. And I feel that would be especially useful if we could get some leadership type people to do that.
Well, what I was hearing what I hear there is you want to bring some leadership together so you could reach out and try to find those people that for those dialogues. I was hearing, Virginia, that you would like to bring your friends together who are organizers to take part in an empathy circle, perhaps between each other, you and each other.
Well, they are organizers on the side of Antifa. They're
okay.
And so I can imagine that some ripple effect might take place from just these couple of people I'm thinking of.
Okay.
Would you be willing to hold an empathy circle with your two friends, and just like we were doing before, and you can sort of introduce it, and then maybe they'd be willing to do it with some people on the other side, and maybe we could arrange that and support it? Or
would I be the person that's doing the mediating, though? I mean, what I'm thinking is somebody that's stronger at that than I am might be good.
We could, one of us could kind of hold it, and we set a time online, and we have an hour and a half or 2 hours, and we just introduce it, and we can have bring 4 people into it, yourself and 3 others, and say, hey, we want to do this empathy circle together to show you how it works. And I'm kind of using it with the left, saying, well, you can use this process and it'll actually help you work together more effectively, right? Which it does. It really helps internal, Antifa could be more effective if they used empathic listening with each other. And then, hopefully they get familiar with the process, and then they could reach out to others too. So that's, I don't know if any of that resonates.
I'll do that. I'll talk to them.
Okay.
In the process, I just want to say one more thing, that in the process of writing this op-ed that we're hoping will be published, Lou helped me understand how to make the case for why somebody like Antifa should do this. And that is that in this process, you will be heard. In other words, each person has to take a turn speaking and listening. So they don't have to be worried that when they speak to people on the right, that the other person is just going to broadcast back to them and not take in what they say. The real advantage, I know it's obvious, but it somehow needs to be said. Because people ask us, why do I want to go and talk to a Nazi? Why do I want to go? The answer is because you will be heard. They will have to repeat back to you what it is you say. And that's a powerful thing that doesn't happen outside of the structured process. So that's that's how you make the argument that they should do this,
Well, and I would like to add to that I think people on the left who aren't interested in dialogue, they either don't believe that there's any point to having the dialogue, which is what Dave just talked about, that, what purpose there might be, which is a chance to be heard and maybe a chance to understand the other people too, if you think there's something to understand about them. And the other is, if they're not interested in dialoguing, it's probably because they don't believe that the other side is actually interested in engaging in dialogue. And so, and the evidence of that might be, sending them a link to the Joey Gibson dialogue with, some other successful dialogues we've had between groups that don't really, that maybe didn't think that there was any value in dialogue, so that they can see kind of what is likely to happen.
Cornel West and Joey Gibson in private, because Joey Gibson is a public person, and that would possibly be a very good combination, actually.
You're muted, Virginia.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm going to ask this woman who's a friend of Cornel West about this idea. I am going to do that.
That would be super.
Okay, we're past the 9 o'clock. Does anybody have 10 minutes more? Does that work? Just
Actually, I need to go.
okay.
So I'll say thank you, everyone. It's been really great. And look
thanks.
forward to connecting again like another time.
Hope to see you later.
And Indy, I'd be happy to do some pre-circle with you. And I'd be happy to participate in that circle. I have a pretty strong technology background myself.
Okay.
Doing web development, so I'd be happy to be a participant in that circle too.
Okay, great. Edwin can connect us, or you can just Google Indy Young and you'll find me.
Okay.
Okay, cool. I have to go too, so nice to meet you.
I wanted to just say something really quick, which is, if anybody wants to see what it was really like in that crazy scene in the tent, if you go on YouTube and look up Rod Weber, Riot in Berkeley, you'll see it.
Yeah, he did an article on Daily Kos too. Kind of laid it out. So I just wanted to quickly, Bob and Bill, did you have any ideas, anything you wanted to work on on this? Or?
Sure. It seems for me at this point, I have a lot. I want to see how you guys work and what you're doing, and then see how best my skills fit in, and also how I can expand my skills to fit in. So I plan to go to a meeting this weekend. I'm going to go see my dad, but then I'd like to get announcements of the next empathy tent, and then I'd like to attend one of those.
Okay.
And sort of get my feet wet, get to know you guys, you get to know me. And then we see how the fit is and how it goes forward.
Oh, great.
Yeah, good work. Thank you.
And Bob, do you have any thoughts?
I look forward to continuing to be part of this discussion, and I hope that you can find a way to help me be active down here in LA. Okay, and maybe we can just close with like a 30-second, like how was the meeting for you? I get excited. I'm excited that we had everyone turn up, and everybody, there's like a real feeling of groundedness and kind of solidity that I feel. That's a good feeling for me.
I'm excited to learn new things.
I'm pleased to have met everyone and expanded my network and sort of my perspectives.
I thought it was great. It was just really nice to have you all here and feel like, we've got we're growing, and you all seem really, really perfect for what we're doing. So.
This has been a great investment of 2 hours with you. Thank you.
And yeah, thank you, everybody.
Okay.